All right, everybody, welcome into KBO Chats Live. I'm your host, Sam Pasco, alongside Eric Halterman, and we are breaking down the entire KBO slate today. It is our last show of July. Man, these games, these months have been flying by, but it's been really fun. Eric, how you feeling right now?
Good. MLB just started up, so I'm pretty sure it's early April, but I guess you might want to check that there. It's an exciting time to be a sports fan with MLB a week in and still going strong-ish. And we got NHL and NBA starting up too. So we went from 0 to 60 on this side of the ocean pretty fast, so bit overwhelming, but I wouldn't have it any other way, that's for sure.
Yes, and you can't have asked for much of a better slate for KBO tonight as we have aces galore, definitely competing with LeBron tonight. But actually, you don't really compete with the times because it's 5:30 a.m. Eastern, so a little breakfast time baseball, which is always fun, no matter if there's American sports or not. But have some great games tonight. Where shall we start? Shall we start, of course, the team that's just in the first top left corner, talked about them on the KBO show today. But before we do want to announce we are taking your comments. Let us know your best pick. We want to get you guys involved, engaged, as always. So let's dive into it here. LG Twins. They've been one of the hotter teams, actually the hottest team right now in the KBO. You can see the streak here, four in a row, and they're taking on the Hanwha Eagles. Eric, do we expect them to stay hot again to finish out this week?
If it wasn't the Eagles, I'd be a little less sure. They are 8-2 over the last 10, with 3 wins against the Eagles, 3 wins against the Wyverns. You take that out, and they're a very mediocre 2-2 against teams that aren't the worst two teams in the league. But hey, you got to beat those teams too, and they've been absolutely crushing them. They scored 44 runs in 3 games against the Wyverns in the midweek series. Hard to do a whole lot better than that. So I think it's not quite safe to say they're fully back. I'd like to see them, go on an extended run against good teams, but they did, win that series against the Bears over the weekend. Things are definitely looking a lot better for the Twins than they were just a few weeks ago.
One encouraging note is former friend Roberto Ramos. He went yard, played it in 3 runs here as we see our note. Do you think Ramos is back now to form? Finally getting a dinger here. Do you think he can maybe power this Twins offense back to their early season glory?
Yeah, I mean, not just once. He's done it twice in a row, actually, and he's hitting quite well over his last 7. He's got hits in 6 of his last 7 games with an OPS over 1,000 over that stretch. We've seen him do this kind of thing in the past, so it shouldn't be a surprise to see him do it again. I don't know if he was nagged by those ankle and back issues for quite a while, or maybe pitchers were figuring him out. But whatever the reason was, it seems like he's got the start of another hot stretch. Would love to see him do it for more than a week or so, but I'm definitely back to being very willing to roster Ramos in my daily fantasy lineups, whereas there was several weeks there where he seemed like basically a trap.
For sure. I mean, Roberto Ramos was looking like an MVP candidate for a good chunk of the beginning half of the year. Falling off. Hopefully, we can see him return that. Seeing some people come in now. Good evening, guys. Coming on in. We're talking about the Hanwha Eagles LG Twin series first up here. Twins, looking like they're going to coast to another victory. Like you said, they're hot right now. Sean here, of course, sarcastically saying that. Just kidding. But LG, they're getting healthy. Starting pitching wise, how do we feel about that staff? Casey Kelly and Tyler Wilson haven't been aces, but does it really matter? Do you think these other guys are stepping up and it will be enough for them to overcome?
Yeah, I think they won't need Kelly and Wilson to be at their best this series. I think Kelly's been decent this year. Not necessarily the ace that they had expected him to be or had gotten him to be in the past. But his strikeout rate is a tick or two above league average, and his walk rate is a tick or two below. He was on a good stretch, 4 straight strong starts before getting knocked around by the Bears his last time out. He does have that in him this year. It's been somewhat inconsistent, but I think the Eagles are not likely to challenge him very hard, even with Brandon Barnes who's an awesome play in daily fantasy sites just because, for whatever reason, DraftKings algorithm just keeps these guys super low. These guys, foreign hitters that are joining in the middle of the year, just doesn't give them any respect. Like they're treated as bench scrubs, basically. So he and Addison Russell are both pretty free squares at this point until they start pricing them like their talent suggests. But man, there's not that much else beyond him on the Eagles. So I think Kelly should have a pretty easy night tonight. On the opposite side, Shiwan Zhang is a guy that I like every now and then, especially for fantasy purposes. I'm often drawn to these shaky, high strikeout, high walk guys because they're not that good. That's why their price isn't that high. His ERA, I don't think he deserves a whole lot better than that. But he does strike out quite a lot of guys. He's third among qualified starters in strikeout rate at 23.9%. So if you're looking for a high upside fantasy play, he's there. He's got the chance of striking out 9. And he was on quite a good run, as you see there. That's 6 straight starts where he had allowed just 2 runs or fewer. But then, of course, he got blown out by the Wyverns, of all people, his last time out. So he's unreliable at best. Definitely some upside there. But on the whole, I think the expected result for him is worse than it is for Kelly. And there's a massive difference in the lineups. Again, the Twins scored 44 runs over the last 3 games. It was enough to shoot them up, I think, 2 spots in the runs per game. I think they now sit 3rd. They were 5 the last time we talked on Monday. Just those 3 games, which you figure this late in the year, it's hard to move up that far. But again, when you put up 24 in one game, that'll do it. So I think with the way they've been playing lately and the fact that even in Kelly's worst year in the KBO so far, he's still fine. I think it's pretty comfortably Twins in this one.
Yeah, so I didn't even get a chance to mention that 24 runs there. I completely forgot about that earlier in the week. When you talk about a crooked number, it doesn't get more crooked than 24. I mean, that is insane right there. And you wouldn't expect that from the Twins. Okay, maybe the Bears or the Dinos, but the Twins, whew, and then following up with 11 and 9. I mean, this is some fun KBO offense right here. And this has probably been one of the brighter spots we've seen for KBO overall because it has been, plagued by some rain. There's been some rainouts. We got a question here about the rainouts being made up. I know there was a game on Monday. Do you have any other updates on when these games will be made up? I know the Giants Dinos game yesterday was rained out. Do you have any other thoughts on when makeup games will be played?
Yeah, they've done the occasional doubleheader, the occasional Monday game. As far as I can tell, the plan is to make up all of them, unlike MLB, where they're trying to really cramp into a tiny window and may not be able to get through all of them. As far as I understand, the plan is to play every game.
So we're not looking at 7-inning doubleheaders. Is that what we're
not yet? We're keeping it major league level for now,
Good.
as far as I understand.
Good.
They do the one change. They don't play extra innings in doubleheaders.
Yes. Well, KBO already
but,
has ties, so that's
right.
not a completely different change.
Right.
That's not completely out of the ordinary, but definitely something that us in America might not be completely used to. So we easily like the Twins in this one, of course, Eagles. So moving on, we have the main dish tonight, I would say, with 2 excellent pitchers. Brooks, pretty solid ERA. Dan Straley, an even better ERA. Do you think this now takes the cake as the best pitching one-on-one matchup we've seen this entire year?
I still think that Jokic versus Alcantara may have slightly topped it, but especially given how hot Alcantara was heading into both of those. But I think this is up there. We've got number 5 in ERA and Brooks versus number 2 in Straley. And they're both incredibly reliable, too. I mean, as you might expect, they haven't been blown up much given those low ERAs. Brooks has allowed more than 3 earned runs just a single time. And Straley has allowed 2 or fewer all but twice. He has like 1-4 and 1-5 in there, but everything else is 2 or less. He's allowed a single earned run in 28 innings over his last 4 starts. That's a .32 ERA with a .61 WHIP over those last 4, and he's won 4 in a row, which is new for him. He was not getting wins at all. I was comparing him to that 2018 Jacob deGrom season when he was the best pitcher in the NL, and really barely got enough wins to sway the old school Cy Young voters to give him the award. That's this kind of year Straley was having with basically no support from the Giants, but he's finally getting wins now. He's pitching as well as ever, and basically nobody can get a run past him these days. So should be a very good pitching duel, especially because both offenses are quite weak, both in the bottom few. So could well be a 1-0 type game or a 3-2 or something. 3-2 might be high scoring for these two pitchers.
Yes, I mean, I saw the total set at 8.5, and I saw that as even a little too high when you look at what these teams offensively have been put up. Tigers ranked 7th, and the Giants, they're ranked 8th, so not good offensively with two elite pitchers. I think that's a recipe for that low-scoring game. Who do you give the edge to, though, for the actual victory here? If we are looking at 1-0, 2-0 victory, Tigers-Giants, rematch of the 2012 World Series here. But who do we think about who's going to get the edge come the ninth inning when it's all over?
Yeah, it is so close. And again, they're 7th and 8th in scoring, and it's by a .06 run per game margin, and they couldn't get more close really in those lineups. I think Straley is just enough better than Brooks that I'm going to give him the slight edge, but I would disagree with anyone too strongly like Sean there who would give the slight edge to Brooks. I think Straley, when he's on, he's even more dominant. A little bit better strikeout numbers. I think it's just a little bit more reliably amazing. I think Brooks is reliably he's above average or better basically every time, but I think Straley has more chance to just go 8 shutout innings, that kind of deal. Given that that's essentially what he's done for his last 4. So I'd give a slight edge to Straley based on recent performance. I'd go way under. It doesn't seem like their under's been set nearly low enough. Of course, now you'll get both these guys giving up 6 in the first inning or something, but I think slight edge to Straley just because he's been enough better than Brooks. But again, it's very close. Wouldn't disagree strongly with anyone who picked either side.
I think one thing with the under is that these two guys go deep into games. They're capable of throwing 8. I think maybe Brooks threw a complete game, but they both each hit 8 innings at least once this year. So because you do worry about that bullpen, you turn it over and then boom, 8 runs out of nowhere. I don't think that'll happen today, but I'm not so sure about the Giants' victory. Yes, Straley, has been hot recently, but early in the season, he was known to not get those victories. So we'll have to see. You like the Giants and the under for this one. Moving on, we got Brandon here talking about the Lions. We got their ace as well tonight, taking on the Kiwoom Heroes. Ben Lively. So many great pitchers tonight. Just got to say that again. So many great ones. He's liking the Lions here. Not a great ERA, but not nearly as bad as the opposing pitcher ERA, well over 6. What do you think about that money line bet for the Samsung Lions to come out victorious tomorrow morning?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Lively's ERA is a bit inflated by some early struggles, and then he missed quite a lot of time with a side injury. He's hasn't made many starts this year at all. He's only made 6, but his 2 since he came back from the injury have been everything you need. 3 earned runs, 11 innings. Not big strikeout numbers his first time out, but his most recent start against the Tigers, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, only 1 run in 6 innings. That's ace material, and I think that's what he's capable of doing. Last year, he joined late in the year, only made 9 starts, and didn't have an elite ERA, but his strikeout and walk numbers were both within like a percentage point of Dan Straley's this year. So that's the kind of upside he has. Again, it was only over a 9-start stretch, but he has everything you need, I think, to be one of the better pitchers here. So that could be reason enough to side with the Lions. Hyun-Hee Han has been an adventure lately. He's had some good starts and some absolutely terrible ones. His earned runs from his last 5, 1, 10, 7, 1, and 5. So he's capable of shutting people down. I believe that one against the Wyverns was on ESPN. It was immediately after he'd allowed 17 runs over a course of 3.2 innings over his 2 previous stretches. And then he came down and almost shut out the Wyverns over almost 7 innings, just a single earned run. And even the strikeout and walk numbers last time out were excellent, 10 strikeouts, 1 walk. So there's something there. He's a converted reliever. He spent all of at least last year and I think several more pitching out of the bullpen and was pretty good. But he has never fully gotten it going this year. Over the course of the year, his strikeout and walk numbers are fine, pretty mid-rotation, maybe number 4 starter kind of numbers. He's getting absolutely killed by his BABIP, 382. You expect that to be just a bit over 300. So he's got some bad luck there. He's only straining 60% of runners. You expect that to be about 70. So there's definitely a lot of bad luck in that high ERA, but hard to have too much faith in him given, what he's done 3 out of his last 4. So if you were to side with the Heroes, I think you'd be placing a lot of faith in their lineup, which might not have the best of days against Lively. It did just get a whole lot better with Addison Russell. And really 1 through 6, at least they're as deep as anybody right now. Russell, of course, he's only played 2 games so far, but he's got 3 hits already. And he held his own for an extended period at the major league level, which you just can't say about basically every other foreign hitter. Usually they go over there because they couldn't earn regular playing time. Of course, he's over there in part because no team wanted to sign him after his domestic violence suspension, which, unfortunate for moral reasons, but means that from a baseball perspective, he probably is better than the typical foreign hitter that KBO teams have access to. So I would expect him to be quite good once he settles in, and he may have settled in already. So again, that extends that lineup, which was already pretty good at the top. So they could well give Lively a game. Basically, I think the question comes down to how much do you think Lively is good enough to shut down even a strong lineup like this one?
Yeah, I think that's a good one there because Lively, I like him, what he's been able to do since he's been back, but I do worry about the injury, something fluke coming back. I think it was because of the hand injury. It was a comebacker right back, and he's put his hand out there, and he got hit in the hand. He did that again as soon as he came back, so I think he needs to stop doing that. But in terms of the Heroes, you talk about their deep lineup. Do you think they're for real now that we are entering August now? Sean talked about this. They scuffled lately, but then yet they were one of the best in the month of June. I'm not sure what to make of this Heroes team. The Samsung Lions had a little bit of that too about a month ago as well, looking like that dark horse team. Now it's kind of switched over the Wiz, but this Heroes team really has kind of had 2 different sides to it, and I don't know which one to really believe in.
Yeah, they've had their cold stretches for sure. They've looked good, at least offensively. Their last 3 games, they scored 8, 6, and 8 in their last 3, including, I guess you'd call it a sweep in what turned into a 2-game series against the Bears. So I think they're absolutely for real. I think they will give the Bears and Dinos a quality series if they meet either of those teams in the postseason. And they've got the starting pitching, they've got the bullpen. I'm kind of surprised, given the talent they have at the top of the order, that they're not higher than 5th in scoring. But I think they do have enough to give Lively trouble. And again, it's tough to pick the same side as Yun Hee Han, given what he's done a lot lately, even against a pretty mediocre Lions offense. So there's a lot of open questions in this one. I think maybe Han is the biggest one. Maybe Lively is the biggest one since he's only made 2 starts since coming back. And again, he looked really good the last time and pretty good the time before that. So decent amount of questions about both pitchers.
For sure. SG here asking about Kiwoom, the team total you referenced. That's how many they score basically on average, 5.5. They had to tick over. Do you think, like we were talking about Lively, but do you think they could put up that average because of what they've done recently, or do you think Lively has enough?
Yeah, Russell does help, but I think Lively is an above-average pitcher, so I think betting them to have a below-average performance seems like the smart move, even though, again, the Russell factor, as well as the fact that this is being played at the most hitter-friendly park in the league, Daegu Samsung Lions Park. So I think I would slightly side with the under there and pick the Lions. But not a ton of confidence there because, again, if Young-Hee Han has one of those good games, which he is perfectly capable of having, especially against a pretty mediocre Lions offense that is without a foreign hitter at the moment, there's definitely a path to the Heroes winning, but I think I would slightly give the edge to the Lions most because I think Lively should be quite good.
I like it, picking against Addison Russell. We'll see how that pays off later today. But one last thing on the Kiwoom pitcher here, because in the KBO, we've seen to kind of see the opposite of what happens with pitchers here in the States, where you have starters turn into relievers. In the KBO, it seems like we have relievers turning into starters. Do you trust guys like that have to make that switch over from, making just a couple, 1 or 2 innings to now throwing a full 6? Do you trust those guys? Do you have any other feeling on those type of pitchers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think I would trust them right away. I think I'd want them to have a fair amount of starts under their belt, but we do have that. Problem is with Han, it still seems inconclusive because, again, pretty fine underlying numbers. A lot of bad luck in the batting average on balls in play and the left on base rate. Those are two numbers you look at as far as things that you would expect to regress to the mean and take a guy's ERA with it. So there's definitely some signs that point in an encouraging direction for him. So I don't think I would count him out as somebody who definitely doesn't work out of the rotation. But clearly he hasn't been, at all what they were looking for, at least in terms of preventing runs. But again, there's definitely the chance that he sorts those terrible outings out and we see him pitch more like a 4 ERA pitcher going forward or something like that. He hasn't shown elite numbers by any means, but I think he's a lot more competent than the ERA suggests.
I like it, making up a very good game today. A little sleeper one outside that Giants-Tigers matchup. Moving on, we got the Wiz and the Wyverns. I'm going to try to stay up and watch this game. It should be exciting. I believe game 2 is on ESPN at 5 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Yeah, Saturday morning / deep Friday night. William Cuevas, the number 2 for the Wiz, is going against the Wyverns team that we saw get swept by the Twins at 24 number. They gave that up. So I'm not feeling too confident in this Wyverns team, especially against the Wiz offense. Is there anything deeper here with this a Wyverns pitcher that actually has a lower ERA than Cuevas?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you look at some of the underlying numbers for the pitchers here, they're almost identical. Cuevas' strikeout rate is 0.3% lower. His walk rate is 0.3% lower. His ground ball rate is 0.5% higher. His home runs per 9 are 0.04 higher home runs per 9. So it's about as close as you can get in terms of basically every underlying number that goes behind that ERA. And they've both been quite good over the course of the season. Cuevas was struggling early, had a brief absence. Was his a hip? I don't entirely remember. I think it might have been a hip. But since he's been back, he's been very good. In 6 starts, he's allowed a total of just 10 runs, with 5 of those coming in 1 start. So 5 of his 6 starts since returning from that injury, he's looked like one of the better pitchers in the league. Seung-Hwan Moon, he's been very up and down. In May, he had an ERA over 6. In June, he had an ERA under 1.5, and in July, he's been high 3s, which might be where he is going forward. He's only struck out 3 in each of his last 3 starts, Seung-Hwan Moon, so he hasn't been at his best. But again, he has been one of the few bright spots for the Wyverns for most of the season. So both pitchers are guys that I would trust under normal circumstances, but I think when you factor the lineups into the mix, it's a pretty huge gap between these two.
Yeah, Sean's saying essentially even. And when you listed those numbers, they seem to be basically the same pitcher. I would think you'd want to give the edge here with the Wiz and potentially that over when I think about Mel Rojas Jr. and Becco Gong, guys that have been perennially on the power rankings that come out each Monday. But do you think maybe they could run into a trouble with these two, William Cuevas and William Cuevas 2.0?
Yeah, I think the pitchers are actually good enough to keep it on the under, even with Rojas in the game. Also because the Wyverns lineup has not been good over the course of the season, though they have been hitting a little bit better lately. I think Cuevas is good enough to keep them to a pretty low total. And again, Moon has been slightly worse than he was in June, but still a pretty good pitcher. So I think I'd side under, and I think I'd side pretty comfortably Wiz because, again, Mel Rojas Jr. is about twice as good as anything the Wyverns have to offer. Even though, again, the middle of their order is not bad. Wouldn't play them against Cuevas in daily fantasy tonight, but Jung Choi, Jamie Romack, and Dong Min Han, it's a decent heart of the order, which I think getting Han back from an injury, he missed almost 2 months with a bruised shin after fouling a ball off himself. I think that's been part of the key to them having some more respectable offensive numbers lately. So they're maybe not the horrible team they have been at times this season, but it's still not nearly as good a lineup as what the Wiz have.
That's fair. When you look at the Wyverns lineup, you see right there in the heart of it, Jamie Romack. Saw this and noted this on the KBO show. He had the day off Thursday, and that's this morning Thursday, in case you're new to the KBO, those 5 a.m. morning time zones. Craziness there. But is that more of just a rest issue? Do you think maybe this is, a sign of more to come with Tyler White going to be joining the team sometime soon? Or do you think Romack still has something there?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's some nagging injuries. He's dealt with those throughout the past few weeks. I think they said it was an sore elbow, kept him out for a bit. It's rare that the top hitters in the KBO seem to get any days off, part of that being the regular Monday day off where they don't need to necessarily get an extra one every now and then. I guess they say fatigue in the latest report, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the sort of general soreness kind of deal. He is getting up there in age. He's 34. Long career of professional baseball around the world. So wouldn't be surprised if he needs the occasional maintenance day. I'm not sure if it's a recurrence of an injury or just, he's been not at peak form for quite a while.
All right. SG here asking about KT and their team total. I would think automatically, of course, that they could hit that total. But now you are mentioning these pitchers being pretty equivalent. And when we look up here, Wiz, 4th most runs per game in the league. How do you feel about that 4.5 team total for the Wiz?
I think I'd be okay enough with the over there. Sungwon Moon, again, he's been quite good throughout the year, but not quite at his best lately. And 4.5 is pretty low. That's over a run below their average. So I'm not hugely confident in that one because Moon has been quite good at times this year. But given that he's, a step below what he was earlier in the year, I think I could see this being something like a 5-3 win for the Wiz.
All right. Now that takes us to our last game, probably the best series outside of the best game with Brooks and Straley facing off. But we got one of my favorite players, Drew Rzinski, taking the ball for the Dinos, rounding out this Aces Thursday. I don't even know what day it is. With that beautiful 10-1 record and clean 2.00 ERA. I'm thinking it's all Dinos here. Eric, how do we feel?
Yeah, the Dinos have won the season series pretty comfortably, 6-3. We've talked many times in the past about how mediocre the Bears are when somebody who isn't Raul Alcantara or Chris Flexen is starting. And Won Jun Choi is neither of those guys. He has prevented runs pretty well. He only rejoined the rotation just for 2 starts. He's only given up 1 run in 10 innings over those 2 starts. Though 5 strikeouts over 10 innings is nothing special. If you look at his numbers over the course of the year, where he spent most of it in relief, he's basically league average in more or less every underlying number, which you expect on normally to take a step back when he goes from the bullpen to the rotation. It hasn't taken a step back the last 2 times, but that would be my default expectation going forward, is that he's something like a number 4 starter kind of guy, which the Bears need competence, and he might be able to provide that. They really haven't gotten at all what they need out of their back end starters, the established guys, and they haven't had anybody step up and fill in, take that next step and become a solid number 3. It might be him, but I'd be surprised if he's a whole lot more than a solid number 3. And I think that gives the edge comfortably to the Dinos here. They can put up runs even better than the Bears. It's the 2 best offenses in the league. So when you get one guy who maybe is a mid-rotation starter versus Drew Rucinski, who's been really good all year, although apparently not good for Sean's heart rate, which is interesting. Not sure exactly what he's talking about there, but interesting one for sure. No analytics on that one is true. Any analytics you could give would love them. He's 6th in strikeout rate, 3rd in ERA, 4th in WHIP. He's pitched against the Bears twice, only given up 2 earned runs in 13 innings. And he's been on a run that is as good as almost anybody. I think we talked about Straley's run being slightly better earlier in the year. But he's allowed in his last 5 starts just 3 earned runs in 33 innings. ERA under 1, WHIP under 1. His last 5 earlier there, he's been pretty much as good as anybody. Not quite the dominance in terms of preventing walks there somehow, but maybe that is where that stress comes from. But over the course of the year, he's been perfectly fine in walk rate, so I'm not sure there's a big worry there. So given the way he's pitching and given the fact that, it would be a positive outcome for Won Jun Choi if he ends up a number 3 starter, I think you got to give pretty comfortable edge to the Dinos.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. The walks are definitely concerning. I had a chance to talk to Drew Rucinski after his opening day start. He said the walks is something that, he is concerned about. That, 3, 1, 3, that's not something you want to see from an MVP caliber guy. But he gets those strikeouts in bunches, 8 in his last start. So I think he should be able to mow down the Bears offense. Yes, they're pretty strong, but so is Rucinski. Maybe Sean's just talking about just how dominant Rucinski is. Just so stressful how good he is. But we'll have to see tonight with the Bears. That pitching staff, how many innings do you think we're expecting out of Choi? You mentioned, another converted reliever. Threw 5 in his last 2 starts. Do you think he could go that long? Or do you think the Dinos offense will probably knock him out in the 2nd or 3rd inning?
Yeah, just checking his pitches. His pitches on the last 2 starts were 87 and 68. So I'd be surprised if he cracks 90, given that it was just 68 last time, which means, in 90 pitches at most, you're talking 6 innings, and that's if he cruises through those 6. I doubt he's going to cruise through any innings all that well against this Dinos offense. So I think there's a very real chance he goes less than 5, and then you're into the bullpens and have a chance for the Dinos to get quite a high number up once you get there.
That's fair. Those bullpens and even the starters that aren't named Raul Alcantara are quite bad, quite weak for that Bears team. So that's all 5 games going on tonight. Rain looking a little better, only 8% chance, 6%, 2, 7, 5, and that's been a big issue for players. We want to see some KBO action, but we had 4 games last night, and hopefully we'll have all 5 today. So that should be exciting. Aces galore. Wrapping up now. Eric, what are your top 3 picks? Everyone loves these. As always, follow us on RotoWire, KBO on Twitter. What are we most confident in? Top 3. Let me hear it.
We'll go team against the Eagles as number 1. In this case, that's the Twins. As we talked about before, there are some decent things about Shiwan Zhang, the starter for the Eagles. He does strike people out. He also gives up runs. He was on a good run, but he was terrible last time out. Casey Kelly hasn't been everything you want from him, but he's facing the Eagles. So I think they've got huge advantage in lineup, especially given the way the Twins have played lately. They absolutely destroyed the Wyverns pitching earlier in the week. So pretty comfortable Twins as the top pick of the day. After that, I think I got to go Dinos over Bears. It's weird to be picking against the Bears as the 2nd most confident pick of the day. But given that it's Drew Rucinski versus, again, a guy who's been a reliever most of the year, I think that's pretty comfortable for the Dinos. And if we do over-unders for these, the Straley Brooks under, even though it's really low, I think those guys are just so good and those lineups are so mediocre. Man, under 7.5, that is very low. But man, those guys are so good. I think I would put that as the third.
That is a quite low. FanDuel, those odds are from FanDuel Sportsbook. 7.5 is low, but a 2-0, 2-1 ball game hit that under. So I like that there. Submit that. You can submit your picks. WorldBaseballPick'em.com. Follow us on Twitter at RotoWire KBO. Some final shout outs. Vegas Analytics. Thanks for hopping on here. You know, the times have been pretty crazy, competing with NBA as well. LeBron is on now. But hey, stay with the KBO. We got our expert. We got our sharp right here. Eric covering it all. Tom and Jerry, welcome back. Dinos Bears first 5 under 5.5. I think that kind of works. What do you think, Eric?
Well, so if you got faith in what Juan Jun Choi's doing in his last 2 starts, that does seem good. But again, he's been a reliever most of the year, and his underlying numbers are fine. But again, you expect a bit of a step back when a guy moves from the bullpen to the rotation. I think there's definitely a chance that he gives him several good innings again. Although, again, there might be something of a mirage in those 2 because not really putting guys away with just 5 strikeouts in 10 innings. I would not expect the Bears to contribute much to that over-under in the first few against Rajinski. So you're basically saying, do you have faith in Chud to not get blown up by the Dinos? I personally don't have faith in him to not get blown up by the Dinos, but it's a close enough call. I mean, you know, it could be 5-0 Dinos very easily, and you'd still hit that under. So,
yeah, I like that, especially if you look at what Choi did against, you know, his past 2 starts. It was against some pretty weak offenses. Kia, LG's been soaring lately, but back on the 25th, maybe not the best. So, yeah, that'll be a good one there. That's all we got. DX, a little late. That's okay. We got the replay coming up here on both YouTube and Periscope. As always, hit us up on Twitter with your picks, comments, and questions. That's all I got. Eric, anything else?
Just looking at quick injury news. The only main thing there is Jake Brigham may not be out after all. It seems like he may end up just skipping that 1 start and is cleared to pitch Saturday. That's pretty huge for the Heroes. They have not really had all 3 foreign players active at the same time since like the first week of the season. I remember they ditched Taylor Motter like almost as quickly as you can after he wasn't settling in on or off the field. They've had Jokic the whole time, but Brigham was out most of the time. And then as soon as they got Addison Russell in, they lost him briefly again. But if they can get Brigham and Jokic and Russell added to what's one of the stronger cores of local players there, Jung-Hoo Lee, Ha-Seong Kim, some of the best young hitters there, that'll be huge. That could key a charge back up the standings if they can get him. So that'll be I'm definitely rooting for some good health for him. I think I'd love to see Heroes making a charge down the stretch.
Yeah, if they have both their pitchers going and Addison Russell, that is going to be a dangerous team. And maybe we'll see another crazy month like we did with the Heroes back in June. Barry, we saw your comments. We will hit you up on Twitter with some of their notes one-on-one in the DMs. And that is all we got. DX, check out the replay of this on Twitter and Periscope. And that's all we got for you guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody.